Alright, y'all, we back with another video. Today we're going to be talking about if you should summon for Miguel, right? So as you can see, we do have Miguel on screen. So there's, of course, a couple of things you have to know when deciding if you actually want to summon on this character. So for one, Miguel, just like Yuta, is a movie-only character. There is a chance that he will reappear in the future, but there will be few opportunities to get him. So if you want Miguel, you should probably try to get him. Because the thing is, we've only gotten the JJK0 event literally the beginning of the game and literally a year later. So there's a possible chance that we're probably only going to be getting them yearly. For now, as far as we know, this is the first time that they ever rerun, so we don't know what their plans are. But like I said, there is a chance that they will reappear in the future. So, you know, you will probably have more opportunities, but don't keep that in mind. This is just speculation. Don't judge it off of what I'm telling you and just assume that, yeah, they're definitely going to come back. There's a possible chance that they might not come back. Now, we're going to talk about what the character does, so that way you can kind of get an understanding if you actually want to summon for them. So anyways, he is a complex bruiser type character, right, that has debuffs in his kit. So Miguel basically has a rare ability where he can weaken enemy buffs with his skill 3, right? So we have the skill 3 right here, and his special skill. And he can also reduce the duration of effects, also making him a good character to use in like high difficulty boss battles, just because the bosses kind of tend to have like buffs that increase like a lot of their protections or a lot of their damage output. And because of his skill 3, you're essentially decreasing the value of their buffs by 30%, which is very powerful for a lot of things. So he is going to be very I wouldn't say needed, but he's definitely going to be very useful, but in niche situations, right? So it's going to be very situational on his use. But of course, there are buffs that, for example, that he can't remove. And those are going to be like stage related buffs that just happen as soon as you enter the stage and everything. And then they just have them persistently. You'll also see when you kind of hold over the boss that it will say unremovable, stuff like that. You'll know that obviously beforehand. Now, he also increases the damage for his skill 1s and skill 2 according to his curse energy, right? Oh, and his special skill, I believe, as well, right? So his special skill does do a little bit more damage if you have more curse energy. I kind of feel like they're kind of leaning more into a lot of this because Geto's buffs changed very similar in this fashion where you want to have a certain amount of curse energy. Yuta also in a similar fashion. He's really a character who really shines when you operate him manually rather than automatically. I don't feel like he's going to be that good on auto just because obviously the skills are not going to activate in the way and manner that you want them to, because he'll use it whenever he has it, right, just to kind of like increase his damage or reduce the damage received. But then you have like enemies who put buffs at specific times and specific turns where you want to use it on those specific turns to actually utilize it to its maximum capabilities, right? So obviously this character is not going to be that good in auto. He's going to be much more better in, of course, manual. But it is very obviously important to note that they are both blue characters, so I am going to be comparing him to other blue characters as well. Now that we kind of talked about what his kit does and how he is, let's talk about the comparison between him and other blue characters, right? Because obviously the main reason when you choose to summon on the character is if they are good in that mono color, because a lot of the times that's kind of how you decide if you actually need him or if he fulfills a slot in those teams. In terms of DPS output, he's not going to out DPS Blue Gojo, because Blue Gojo already I mean, his modifier isn't the craziest, but his buffs to himself make Gojo really insane, and he's an AoE attacker, right? Not that this character isn't going to be doing good damage, he does, but he is like a single target, so his ult is going to kind of be lackluster in stages where you want to clear out ads as well. So Blue Gojo will still out DPS him, and obviously he has a better buff in terms of boosting his damage, because Gojo's buff is actually busted, while this one only increases his own taijutsu by 30% for 3 turns, and then obviously you have to count the turn that you also ult with him, so he is not going to be doing as much damage as Blue Gojo. In terms of comparison with Inumaki, he's not going to do more damage than Inumaki because Inumaki has a higher modifier. On top of that, he has, I'm pretty sure Inumaki's ult is also AoE. I might be mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong, but regardless, his modifier is significantly higher than his, and he debuffs the enemy substantially. So he's going to have a lot more room to do more damage than, of course, Miguel, where Miguel is kind of like taunting while also protecting himself while also doing damage. Like I said, Bruiser likes. Now, he can tank very decently. He's not going to be the craziest tank, but he definitely can tank, right? Just because that skill 2 is pretty insane for him. And then also, if like the boss kind of gets buffs that boost their damage, then obviously the fact that he can lower the value of it by 30% is obviously going to help him tank more as well. It'll help in a lot of different situations. Now, he isn't a traditional debuffer like the other characters. He kind of works in a specific manner with a set of conditions. So he's essentially going to be a little bit worse than Inumaki, just because, like I said, Inumaki, you can just straight up just keep debuffing them to hell until you ult, and yeah, you're just going to do a lot of damage no matter what. And then obviously compare him to like Geto, where Geto just straight up debuffs them to oblivion, so they do less damage to you, and you do more damage to them. So I feel like he's not going to be better than them. I feel like he's going to be in a very tough spot where he doesn't shine unless he can take advantage of his like buff effect, his buff reduction, the gimmick, where essentially he can lower the value of their buffs, and then of course, you know, lower the counts. So I feel like that's going to be his shining. But like if you're trying to like debuff the enemy and you don't really need to like worry about their buffs, then he's not going to really be better there. So I think in most content you'll probably use him as a secondary DPS, so that way he can of course remove buffs and stuff like that, or lower buffs counts, and then of course their value if it's necessary. So he, like I said, he's going to be extremely situational. His taunt though, you might be able to manipulate turns obviously with Gojo. Blue Gojo's Limitless to tank hits, and then obviously let Squishy allies survive a little bit longer, so that way you can complete runs as well. Because I mean, he is a little bit of a bruiser, like I said, and he can definitely do some damage. So he's kind of like in between, where he's like trying to be a debuffer and then also trying to be a DPS. He's kind of like not the best of either. So he's kind of getting there, but he is really good at tanking. So he kind of has like a spread, an overall good spread. He just doesn't have the best spread. So he's like a jack of all trades. So he's not going to shine particularly in any specific role. He's just going to obviously be there for his buff removal, or excuse me, his buff reduction. Basically what I'm getting at is, of course, unless you really like Miguel, you probably won't use him much, because he, like I said, it's situational. But when you think about it, he is a limited unit, and he probably won't be back for a long time. Now, JJK obviously finally had its rerun, so we can assume that Miguel will probably be rerun next year as well, if we do manage to get another rerun. So I think, in my opinion, I think the best way to handle this is to just skip this character. I feel like, in my opinion, with the recent buffs that they did to Geto, I think Geto would be a much better pickup than Miguel himself, just because Geto can just straight up debuff. Sure, his conditions are by having curse energy like above 60, but that doesn't really matter, because the good thing about Geto is he always gets a lot of curse energy due to his characteristic and of course his passive. So I definitely think Geto is a much better pickup, because he's going to be able to just debuff him straight up without any situational use. You just use him if you need to debuff an enemy, simple as that. But yeah, anyways, I feel like, yeah, that's my whole thoughts on Miguel. So yeah, probably don't summon for him. If you were to summon for a debuffer and you want somebody, you definitely should pick up Geto. He's a blue DPS kind of debuffer character, so he's definitely going to be a lot better, and you're going to use him a lot more than you would definitely use Miguel. Miguel's going to be extremely situational, and that's overall the judgment I have on this character. I appreciate you guys for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.